the key thing is on that podium at his press conference, he's got the words stop the boats. He hasn't got the words pass the Rwanda bill or get the flights off to Rwanda. So the key question is, does this policy stop the boats? And if you look at the numbers of people they're planning to send to Rwanda, one is nobody quite knows how many it is, but at one point they were talking about 1,000 people over the first few years, not even, multiple hundreds
I think actually
of people.
probably lower than that. Matt Dathan has, talked about it being 150 people they'd identified as being.
So that is not going to stop the boats because it isn't a proper deterrent. If you think you're already willing to risk your life to come across the channel on this dangerous boat, if you think there's a small chance you might possibly get deported to Rwanda, it's not going to really act as a deterrent. So I think there's a sort of slight danger of missing the wood for the trees in all of this. And actually, what's the purpose of this policy and is it going to achieve that is what really matters.
Rishi Sunak there in Downing Street saying that enough is enough. MPs and peers will sit through the night if they need to pass his Safety of Rwanda bill, describing it as an innovative solution that was needed because so many people were making the dangerous journey across the channel. 9 people have died, he said, this year alone. There were a lot of numbers there as well. 25 courts on standby, 150 judges, 500 highly trained individuals, with one airfield on standby, although he wouldn't give the details of where that was. They've booked commercial airline flights, he said, which was interesting because I know there's been an issue with trying to get airlines to take these flights, which he said would take off in 10 to 12 weeks. We'll listen to all of that. Our columnists, Libby Purvis and Rachel Sylvester. Libby, a clarity of message and purpose from Rishi Sunak that we don't often hear.
Yes, absolutely. Keep them up all night. It is an elected government, like it or not. But the gloom still hangs over it all. Suella Braverman was on this morning saying that even with this version passed, it wouldn't be enough to deter the boats, and we have to pull out of the European Convention on Human Rights. So I don't know. But yes, if looking at it just politically, he does sound as if he's gritting his teeth and trying to say something very, very strong and definite.
And he will say, Rachel, that his opponents don't have a better idea. I mean, whether or not this works will only come out of the wash in the coming months, but no one else seems to have a better idea.
I think the key thing is on that podium at his press conference, he's got the words stop the boats. He hasn't got the words pass the Rwanda bill or get the flights off to Rwanda. So the key question is, does this policy stop the boats? And if you look at the numbers of people they're planning to send to Rwanda, one is nobody quite knows how many it is, but at one point they were talking about 1,000 people over the first few years, not even, multiple hundreds of people.
I think actually probably lower than that. Matt Dathan has, talked about it being 150 people they'd identified as being.
So that is not going to stop the boats because it isn't a proper deterrent. If you think you're already willing to risk your life to come across the channel on this dangerous boat, if you think there's a small chance you might possibly get deported to Rwanda, it's not going to really act as a deterrent. So I think there's a sort of slight danger of missing the wood for the trees in all of this. And actually, what's the purpose of this policy and is it going to achieve that is what really matters.
I suppose if it does, 10 to 12 weeks is still quite a long way off. I was just trying to work out how far that actually is. It's
the middle of the summer,
yeah,
isn't it?
and because there are, despite him saying that, no court is going to stop this happening, actually there is a process.
Which we don't know, actually.
There is a process
could still
that
be...
could take, I think they could be notified this week. I think there's 8 days and there's another 23 days and so it goes on. Libby, do you think that if a flight takes off with people on it for this policy, which everyone said would never take off, will he get any credit for that?
I don't know. I suppose he might, but it's all getting so close to the next election. I don't think he will. I mean, as I say, I was listening to Suella Braverman this morning on, I'm sorry to say, another network, and she was sort of pretty dismissive about the whole idea. But when asked, does she think there should be a challenge to him, again, she shrugged it off and said she didn't foresee any such thing and wouldn't happen and so on. I think we're all just hanging on here. But I'm afraid she did have a point that it doesn't feel like quite enough of a deterrent. it would have to be quite massive. People, the word would have to be getting around all across Europe and across northern France. There's no point in the boats. You always end up on a plane to Rwanda. And that means big numbers. And I don't see the big numbers happening anytime soon.
And actually, the thing that Matt Dathan, the Home Affairs editor of the Times, was saying that actually so many people have come. Anyone who goes on the plane, I've just been in what now early July, will be people who arrived a year, maybe 2 years ago. In terms of, it's not people who, with record numbers we've seen since the beginning of the year. So it's just a question, does that act as enough of a deterrent if you're standing on the shoreline in Calais?
And of course, the Conservative right-wingers are standing by ready to turn this into an issue about Rishi Sunak's leadership and whether he's got the guts in their mind to deal with the ECHR, European Court of Human Rights. So that will become the new kind of right-wing totem, if you like, as a test of his credibility.
And having had so many people, Libby, on his own side saying this isn't right, it's not going to work, he's sort of, he's got one hand tied behind his back by his own side.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose he had to say something firm now, just to give any credibility to the whole thing at all. But it's desperate. It's a desperate thing to watch. There is, as Rachel will be telling us, I hope, about the Commission. I mean, there's so much else that we and the Home Office should be thinking about.
Yeah, and in fact, we've had loads of messages of people saying, where have they managed to find 25 courts and 150 judges not doing anything?
Exactly. There's a massive courts backlog.
Yeah.
You've got, prisons crisis. You've got the police, absolutely snowed under. It seems like an odd priority.
It's quite interesting. Sometimes on the drone footage, you can see somebody operating the rudder.
And that for us is why the tech capability is really crucial, because that gives us...
So we saw all the drone surveillance footage and how you guys could then use it to build a case, and then which is helpful for us for prosecuting.
Absolutely. So everybody's actually working with everybody else within to try and get that across as well. So
everything Home Office all coming together so we can.
And since we
effective small boats
all possible. Yeah. So everybody who's picked up on the boats when they land at Western Jet Fog and they're processing.
Exactly, which is very good. Very good.
Yeah. And so with the anti-terror as well at the back, so that
in one area, then usually a lot of assets and focus will be on that area.
Yeah.
And we know.
Intelligence information with AI and all of our fixed feeds. As you can see on the right screen, this is a representation, again, a live representation of all of the crossings this year. So every single boat is represented by dots, and this is a representation again of one particular day this year where, because of the work that the Small Boats Operational Command has carried out, working with the French on a daily basis, but for the work of this team, our surveillance operation and our partnership with Home Office Intelligence and National Crime Agency, we assessed 801 migrants would successfully have crossed the channel. Because of all the really hard work by teams on the UK side and the French side, there were disruptions across the 100-mile coastal line, and the French prevented 60% of those migrants from crossing successfully. Every single life saved, and a really good example of our fusion.
Yeah. No, Johnny, thanks for that. Actually, Dan and I were just talking. It seems like the degree of cooperation we've got with the French has really increased in recent weeks, and it's actually paying huge dividends.
I think
that's what you're doing week in, week out.
Absolutely, we're in Lille.
The boats to be able to go and intercept. And once we've done that, we also provide the evidence back to our commission.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because part of it is providing the intelligence to maintain our almost 100% interception rate, which is incredibly important that we don't lose anyone, that we pick every single person up so they don't disperse into the community. So thank you for doing that. But it sounds like the other part is gathering evidence so that we can then successfully prosecute, particularly the boat pilots, the boat captains, which it seems to be working. When we've got the evidence, then our ability to prosecute it is very strong.
Yeah, and then you don't